My name is Dyane, and you're here at the worship track for building team culture. But yesterday, a lot of my focus was on a history lesson. And
it was awesome. It was awesome.
We loved it.
It was so interesting because Pastor Dave asked me to speak, and I was more, my mindset was like, I want to be really practical or some hands-on things. But I have been studying all of this history and reading the book, obviously, and I just couldn't get away from it. And I was like, oh, Lord, this is just so powerful. So it was a lot of information, but my hope is that it was also something that's going to inspire you for where you're at in your future. And yes, just understanding where we are today. So today I am hoping that you will be able to share. I know some of you heard me say this yesterday, but my goal is we're going to talk through a few things. And then I actually wanted this to be more sharing amongst ourselves some ideas for building team culture and what you do at your church, how you're focusing on that. Because we can all use more inspiration for that. So, because underneath the surface of all the things that are happening on a Sunday morning and all the things that are taking place, there is a distinct and unique culture that is yours. And even though all of us in our churches are going to have some principles that are definitely the same, there's that family culture, right? Yeah. And just how you function as a team. And the thing is, you are building culture.
Yeah.
Whether you like are intentional about it or not, yes, whether you like it or not, you're building something. Yeah. And so it's taking that time to go, what am I building? What do I want to build? Am I building what I'm supposed to? And when new people come onto your team, that's when you can start to notice, what are they picking up right away? Yeah. And then what do I maybe need to be more intentional about that they're not picking up and I'm not communicating? So you all have heard that quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And, what that really means is we can have all the vision and the strategy and the things going on, but if we don't have the culture to sustain it, it's not going to happen. Right. So we can plan, but we've got to also have the culture there. So the definition of the word culture is the customs, arts, values, and achievements of a particular nation or people that are passed down from generation to generation. So in our family, we definitely have a Davis culture. And if you've ever been around us while we're playing games, you might pick up on it a little bit. I like to call it that we like to do our best. You might call it competitive. I don't know. But actually, we had one of our favorite family nights that we did one night is we did games, and I actually made like a big poster, and it was tournament style. So we had some outdoor like fun games, and we had like card games and Jackbox and whatever, and there was a winner for each one. So it'd like go down with the 6 of us, and then who won out of that, and had the brackets and everything. And it was super fun. We do talk about that a lot, but also Brian and I ended up pastoring our kids that whole night. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. They need a little help with this thing. But we also in our family have a desire that we would be a family that has a culture of hospitality and a culture of joy and generosity and prayer. But the thing is, Brian and I could have those thoughts in our hearts and like, oh yeah, this is what we value. But if we don't communicate it to our kids, or more importantly, we don't live it out and we live out something that's opposite to those things, that's not going to be actually our culture. It's just a belief system that's not affecting us at all. And so the proof will be in our children and how they are. And it's the same with our worship teams. We actually all hold values in our heart for the presence of God. And I know that's why you're here, is that you're not a song leader. You're not just doing songs. You are after the presence of God and for people in your church and discipling people and caring for people. But it's going to be proven by how we communicate, right? And how we live it out. So it won't just be seen in you as if you're the leader or in your leader, it'll be seen in the whole team. And so when people come onto that team, they're going to go, okay, this is what this team values. And team culture, it's something that I have become much more aware of in my own personal journey. If you know our journey at all, we just over a year ago merged, of course, and we were two churches that are meeting here now as Life Spring Church. And that also meant, if you can imagine, that was two worship teams that came together. And we all love Jesus, but we did things differently, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're aware of this, but musicians have opinions. And the way that they like. Owen doesn't have any opinions.
I have no opinion. She tells her I'm not like that one.
And I probably at first went into it a little blindly and then very quickly realized, oh, okay, they do things a certain way. We've done things a certain way. And it just took a lot of navigating on both sides and a lot of humility and accommodating and all of that. But it really required me to take a hard look at what is my culture, or more importantly, what do I want it to be? And how are we going to go forward from here? And just forced me to ask myself hard questions and say, okay, like, how are we going to do this now? How do we navigate going forward? And so every single thing that I planned was thinking around that. So from a Thursday night rehearsal to worship gatherings, which we had a couple very quickly at the start, and just getting everyone together, getting the sound team together. And I couldn't assume that people knew what we wanted worship in this house to be like. And I couldn't assume that they understood what our goal was and what do I do with my face on a Sunday morning? And what do I do with my body? And I couldn't assume anything. It was, I've got to communicate it and communicate it again and make sure they understand the why behind the what that we do. And actually, one example just came up very recently. This wasn't even around the time of the merge, but just about a week or two ago, we did a sound training. So we had the whole sound team together, and we had a guy come up and just help with some practical things, but also he was really good at like, okay, what does your pastor want for the sound, and doing that. And one of them asked me a question, and he asked, when we have like 5 vocals on the stage or 6 vocalists or whatever, how are we supposed to mix that? And he said, because in a recording, really, you can usually only hear one person most of the time. Sometimes you'll hear a secondary harmony coming through. And I was like, that is such a good question. And I realized I hadn't even communicated to them what would our heart be for that? Why would I want to hear more than just the leader? Or the other one's just up there for show or whatever? Why would I not want to hear all of them all the time? And just those kind of questions. And so we talked about, and this is just like, this is for us, and this was my heart. When I'm leading worship, most likely for a lot of the guys in the room, it's not the best key for them to sing the melody line. And if they can't pick out a harmony, then they might just not sing. And so having a guy on stage that's singing a harmony that they can grab onto and sing with them, or the opposite, if they're, Herman's one of our worship leaders, if he's leading, I probably can't sing the melody and the key that he's doing it. But when there's someone else that's singing out and leading people, so that was the reason I said I would want to hear more than just one vocalist. Now we have to be careful. We can hear the melody. And so there's all of that. But it was just such an aha moment for all of us. They were all like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And for me going, I need to, like, I hadn't even really probably thought that question through fully. Just at first I was like, just make it sound good. But what is that? What's good? And what's the goal in a worship service? It's very different than the goal in a concert or in a recording, which I kind of talked about yesterday, how a recording is going to highlight things differently. And that's good because their goal is different. It's the product objective versus the worship objective. So Habakkuk 2, verse 2, I love this verse. It says, "And the Lord answered me, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he who reads it may run." So our goal as leaders is to equip people to run with the vision and the
That's good.
purpose
That's
of
good.
the house,
Yeah.
and that they can take that and it becomes their own heart and their own culture.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a few principles of how we develop a healthy team culture, but I want you to also be thinking along this line, okay, what is it I do? And sometimes we might not be aware, like, oh, I'm doing a great job because I'm doing this. So just be thinking about that. But number one, I think some important principles that, and I've already mentioned this, is be intentional.
Yeah.
Is that first blank there? Be intentional. You're already building culture. Are you building what you want to build?
Yeah.
And don't get caught in the trap of busyness. And, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but how we're all probably planning Christmas and then Easter's in the background. And then we just have our week to week schedules and planning center and blockouts and declines and all of that and keeping that going. So yesterday, the question was to sit before the Lord. What is the future of worship for our church? But also take time to ask the question, what kind of culture am I building? And maybe even more importantly, who am I building?
Yep. So good.
Because we aren't just building this grand idea, we're building people and we're equipping people. Number two, our worship team culture should reflect the vision of our church culture. And I feel like that's been repeated in different ways in all of our sessions, but hopefully you know what your church leadership culture is and that you communicate that to your worship team. And so, for example, one of the things that is really important for Brian and I and our church leadership culture, and this was years ago, is that we wanted to have a culture of honor. That we honor people. And I'm thinking, man, of all the amazing people that are serving this week, it's incredible. Like some of them took work off to do this. That is so honorable. And so one thing Brian started doing right away is whenever we would have dream team nights or leadership meetings or anything, he'd always take time at the start to honor a few people, especially that had just gone above and beyond. So when we started some of our worship gatherings, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later, it was just kind of right away, like, yeah, that's what I do to start. I'm going to honor a couple people.
Yeah.
Our youth leaders, when they get together, they do that.
Yeah.
Our life group leaders, like all the different ministries of the house. And I think it's so important to remember, none of us as ministry groups are building our own house. We're building a room that's in the house, and the house is the house of God. And so if I'm ever doing something that, man, I'm killing it and it's thriving, but the church is suffering, that's not really building the house. And so our goal is building the whole house of God. And so just the things that are in your church culture are reflected in your worship culture. Number three, our worship team culture should value the person more than the skill.
Yep.
And this is something that's like, of course, but it'll be reflected in how you communicate with people, how you structure your gatherings and your rehearsals, how you react to messages and texts, or when something comes up, and even taking time to respond to people. And that is something that I've had to majorly grow in, because I would feel like, oh, I'm so bogged down in emails. But it also isn't okay if I'm not answering people. That's not caring for my team. And so I have to be really intentional. One of God's greatest gifts is your calendar alerts on your phone. Check in with people and send yourself a reminder. So I know sometimes I'll know about something that's going on, but I might not remember until the next time I see them. And then, I didn't ask them how that's going. And so I'll just quickly put in my calendar, text so-and-so. And it's just my reminder when that pops up, like, yes, I want to check in on them, pray for them. So recognizing you're not just doing this music thing together, you're doing life together, and you're pouring into that person. Number 4, communicate what your culture is, and then communicate it again. And I think this is one of the biggest things I am learning in the process of learning. So many times I'm thinking about things and brewing on things and whatever, that I just think everyone else is too, or that I've said it, or they would know, of course, this is what you do. And not realizing, like, you say it and you say it again, and you maybe feel like you're over communicating, but probably about the time you feel like you've said it too much is when people are starting to grab onto it as their own. Yeah. And so it's just that constant communicating in emails, when you're starting a practice, whatever it is. One really practical thing, and I'm pretty sure we all do this in different ways, but I did bring copies of, we have like our worship team applications, and then I have something that I give them. It's just some expectations. And you know what, I brought them because if you like just want a baseline and you can build yours on that, there's nothing fancy or amazing about it. But sometimes coming up with your own thing right at first is like, I don't know. What do I expect from them? Right? And so having like this framework, and then you can kind of change it and make it your own and what works for you. And so, but stating those expectations is so helpful for people. And I love what Jenny has said a couple of times. People will rise to expectations too. I actually feel really challenged by that personally, that I've kind of been like, oh, I don't want to put too much pressure. I don't want to put too much pressure. Actually, no, they can do it. They can rise to that expectation. So, but you know, what do you expect from your worship team before you get together for rehearsal? Do you expect that your team is practicing the songs that you put on Planning Center? I just became aware of this in April. I didn't know this on Planning Center. You can actually see, this is maybe bad, and I don't even check it. I just became aware of it. Someone told me you can know who's opening up their files before a practice. Did you know that? I actually have never looked because I don't want to know. I don't have that tutorial, no.
Everyone's just pulling on their phones.
So that it's not like on the way to worship practice, oh, we're doing a new song. Oh, the song is kind of hard.
Hey, can you lead a verse? I've often said, practice, am I supposed to listen to the songs?
Yeah, he does say that often.
Let the rest of the team know.
Yes.
But, and again, what do you expect of them as a singer? What do you expect of them as a band member if they have to do some setup? Do you want them there early, or, you know, just stating those things clear? Did you say it? Yeah.
She does it all the time, guys.
Good. So this has been, again, I'm like saying things that I'm growing in. When I first started as worship pastor, I shared a little bit yesterday that it was kind of like, you've just got to do this. You've got to step into this. And there was no one else to do it at the time. And I very quickly realized, because I was the only worship leader at the start. And I was like, this will never happen again. That's not the way to build the kingdom of God. So I've got to grow in people. I've got to grow in skills. And in spirit, in all the things. I want to grow everything. And so one thing we started doing, we called it First Thursdays, and because we usually did practice on Thursday evenings, but the first Thursday of every month, I invited the whole team to come, all the sound people, guitar players, drummers, singers, everyone. And I had to grow in like asking them, can you make this a priority? Because this is important. And again, I'm learning to like step out and to state my expectations a little bit more. But it became such a valuable night. And so one of the things I would start by honoring, we tried to start with some fun, some food. Actually, often Owen and his wife got the food ready for it. And we'd usually have a game for people, and really just a way to connect and get to know hearts. And then sometimes it would be some teaching, just what is the heart of worship? Sometimes I would talk about like, okay, as a singer, what you're doing on stage, let's talk about that. And how are you leading others into worship? Not just with your voice, with your countenance, with everything. And again, just going through some of those expectations. And we tried to make these nights really full and fun. One of my favorite things that we did actually was practicing the prophetic, and just had a keyboard player play simple chords. And we had written out some scriptures from Psalms and talked about the prophetic and why it's important in the prophetic song. And then just encourage them, go for it.
Yeah.
Like,
awesome.
there's some words if you want that you don't have to go off of any of these verses, but this might help you get started. And I would say I was very unsure of how it would go. I didn't know if it was going to be completely awkward and quiet. And the whole evening blew me away. Someone right away just started singing a song, and then it just went from person to person. And then sometimes we went into prayer, went back into the prophetic, and just flowed. And they hadn't had a chance to really just practice that and know, okay, I can flow in the prophetic. Often we ended the evening by learning a new song that we were planning to introduce pretty soon. And so we'd break off into vocals, and the band members and the drummers, take turns, teach it to the piano players. And then we'd all come back at the end, and it was totally messy and chaotic and didn't sound amazing because we'd have as many people going as at once as we could. But just do the song. And it was so fun. And then we were all excited, like, oh, this song is going to be great. And then no matter which team was going to do it, hopefully they had learned it that evening. And so it was just a way to build people, build team culture. And so what happened then, coming into this merge, we didn't do it first Thursday of every month, although now I am like, I might go back to that. But I found we did have a need for more practices, and half of our team didn't even know this stage. And it just, everything was a learning curve for me. Like, I hadn't been in this building before, right? So where's the batteries? I don't know. Like, everything was learning. And so, but we did that again. And the nights were even more important of just communicating our culture. But I was so thankful that the Lord had done this for a year before, where I felt like, okay, now I think I know what I want our culture to be. And now we can communicate that again and again and again. I did want to talk really quickly too, before we all talk, about just rehearsal culture and taking time to talk about that with all of your worship leaders. That what is the goal of rehearsal? And also knowing, like, it's a time of caring for people, praying together. But hopefully our goal, just put a few points there, is that we're moving from song structure to spiritual sensitivity.
Yeah.
So we're able to move beyond, okay, now we know how the song, probably how we're going to do it, move from mechanical to expressive worship, move beyond the music and create unity as a band, to mentor new and younger musicians, and to make time to pray with and for your team. And I think that is so valuable, that they don't feel like they're just coming and practicing songs, but that you're building into them. And like the dry bones in the verses in Ezekiel 37, we can have all the goods, we can have all the structure and the process there, but if we don't have the breath of God, it's lifeless. And that's where we need him to just come and breathe into us and build us up, and lead us into spirit-led worship. But I would honestly love to hear from some of you. And I know some of you have been leading a team for a while. Some are stepping in, or maybe you're part of a team and you're like, I love how my leader does this. What are some things that you're doing that build and encourage culture? I'll try not to pick on anyone.
Oh, I think you're gonna have to pick on people.
Yeah, you started.
Karen's first.
Well, so when I came in, it was kind of interesting because normally with Healthy Transition, you'd come alongside and kind of learn and get an idea and see what the previous leader was. But we had a vacancy in our church for almost a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
So I can relate to a lot of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt. So I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, where it's like, we need to now build some stuff up. And one of the things that, like for me specifically, I was trying to plan my first worship leaders meeting with our core worship leaders, because I recognized our team is at a size, like we have, for singers, musicians, worshipers, we're like mid-30s. So we do have a lot of people, and I realized like I can't do a good job with each individual person. So I prioritize, like if I can help groom my leaders, then my leaders will help spread that vision and that DNA. So, but one of the things that I realized right away is I prayed and I was like, God, like I mean, that whole like imposter syndrome thing, where it's just like, I'm a tree cutter, like I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I was about to lead this first meeting with our worship leaders, and I was like, well, how did Malin do it, and how did Tanya do it, and how did Pastor Dave do it? And then I felt so clearly God was like, well, I'm not calling them to lead these people, I'm calling you to lead these people. So I did that first meeting, and then I realized I was like, for this year, I need to build a relationship. And I one-on-one met with every single worship leader, at, like just in the lobby of our church, got to know them personally, and got to start building relationship with them. Because I knew if I can connect with them relationally, then they will allow me to lead them. Yeah. Because you're not trying to build people who are just going to do what they're told. Yeah. You're trying to build people who want to follow what you're doing. And people will only follow you if they trust you. So that was one of the things that I realized right away is, how can I proactively build trust? Like, how can I get the team to trust me so the church trusts the team? And get to know your team. Like, just straight up, love your team, get to know them. So that's the number one practical thing that I would say. So good. So good. I love what you said. Not what Pastor Dave was doing, although they influence and shape you, but now it's like what God's called you. But now it's what are you, and that's like every person in here. It's just like, how did God design you to do this? Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Thanks, Jared. Someone else.
I'll just say, like, I think a lot of the things that you communicated here, I think are I mean, all of the things you communicated in this are amazing. I mean, 80%.
You can let me know about the others.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, reflect. Not sure about that. No, these are all amazing points, Dyane.
Bring an apple for her.
Yeah, so good. We do a lot of this. You're talking about, we have team nights, so we do worship community nights. They're like bi-monthly. Okay. So we'll do like food. We'll do like, they sound pretty similar to what you were doing with your first Thursdays. Food. Sometimes we'll do a game or something. But it's really just a time of connection, and we found that is like so helpful for the unity. And then we do a teaching, so we'll teach about unity. We'll teach about what it means to, what true and proper worship is, right? Like living sacrifice. We'll talk about just biblical principles that we all want to we want to worship from that place. And so so this is amazing, and we do a lot of the things that you were talking about. So
Anyone else?
I think we do bi-monthly as well.
Okay.
And get together, and sometimes too, when we're introducing a new song, we'll do that in the midst too, or at least like show it and talk about it and talk through why we're doing it or whatever. And then just recently, actually a guy on our team, he's like really passionate about writing songs, and not necessarily to sing at church, just passionate about just writing and getting together. And I was putting it off for so long, so I'm like, I don't know how to facilitate this or whatever. And he's like, well, you just gotta do it instead of time. I was like, okay. But I, on the other side, I've been feeling we have a lot of young people coming in that are quite musical, and it's like beautiful, and they're serving on youth team when we have youth worship and stuff, and it's so beautiful to watch. But I'm like, how do we incorporate them in with all these people who are like seasoned and have been part of worship team and do know the part of worship, right? And stuff. And so I've been feeling that on the side and not share with him. Anyways, so he's like, here's a night, let's just throw it out. So I just threw it out, not fully sure what I was like look like or who was gonna even show up because it was open. It wasn't like everyone had to show up and come to it. Anyways, it was like such a mix of people that came, and we just paired people up in threes and just were like, go share what God's doing in your heart and go worship together and see what comes. And some came back with like parts of song. You know, it's actually crazy that was Conference Reach, and one of the young people was paired up with one of the older people. It was just two guys, like a 17-year-old and a 40-year-old. And they wrote a song about reach, like just a chorus.
My goodness.
I love it.
Just a course. But I was like, oh, crazy guys, there's a conference that's happening, and it's like that same theme. Like, how cool is that God's speaking
Wow.
to you, and you like wrote that, and it wasn't necessarily that we were doing anything with it. They were just singing a song.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes for that moment.
Yes.
Maybe if they take it and go with it somewhere else in their life, I don't know.
Yeah.
But after it reminded me sometimes that we just need to just be okay to let things kind of organically happen too. Because I am a super planner, and so I didn't want to run the night because I was like, it feels a little bit chaotic. Kind of like, I don't know what's going to come or what people's expectations will be at the end of the night either. Like that they think this is an awesome song, we have to get in church. I'm like, or like, yes. Go either way.
Yeah.
But I was also placed with people that I wouldn't normally just sit with either.
Okay.
Like, so it was just beautiful. And then from that, I met with all of our, like a couple weeks later, met with all of our, like, not new, they've been in the church a long time, but like the grade 12s and university students that have like started participating more in worship and being a part of our team nights and stuff like that, and just met with just them. There was a group of like 15 of them, and it was so cool just because I'm like, that group of kids, they were looking so hard for like, what is genuine worship? What does that mean? Like, I feel like our parents like fought to get like guitars on stage,
Right.
and we're fighting to
Drums.
Drums, all that thing. Now we're fighting to like teach our kids what real, genuine worship is, right? And that next generation of like how to find that amongst the lasers and smoke machines and all the things, right? Like, where do you see when do we know it's genuine and when do we know it's trying to make us feel a certain way? Anyways, and so, but the cool thing in that, and I couldn't have known it or planned it. This is the whole idea of a little bit of the organic part of doing things outside of our commitments. A lot of them, or a few of them, I should say, that came to the songwriting night, loosely, I'm loosely saying songwriting night. I was like, what is inspiring you now? Like, what is powerful worship to you? What does that mean when I say that term? And a few of them that were at that, the huge thing was that for them was at that night when we were writing songs, I just